Hey, I'm Mark Edward Lewis, and welcome to Cinema Sound Studio B. One of the things I love most about doing sound effects is guns, and especially in sci-fi, the plasma, laser, phaser, whatever, creating ingenious new versions of sounds that we haven't heard before, and using things that probably shouldn't go into sound effects and making something great. And today I'm going to show you in Adobe Audition something that we discovered while working on the sound effects for Blade of Honor, which is using a specific animal effect with some cool plugins to make an unbelievably awesome sounding laser beam plasma fire for one of the starships in that series. It's a little unusual, but I think when you get the gist of what we did, you'll start applying it to your productions, not just with lasers, but even door closes and all kinds of other things to create really immersive, bigger than life, high production value sounds without having to increase your budget, which is totally dope. Let me show you. Hey, we're here in Adobe Audition, and let's check out how to make some cool laser sounds or gun type sounds, doing some cool layering, some things you might not have otherwise thought of doing, including using some hawk samples, which is what we did on Blade of Honor. All right, jump right in. So you can always start with a good slinky sound. Where you're like, slinkies? Yeah. Well, sound in a solid bass frequencies travel slower than high frequencies. So if you had a slinky on one hand and a microphone on the other, and you danged one of those slinky ends, you're going to get a pew sound. And then as it goes back and forward, it sounds sort of like this. And if we lengthen these out a little bit, you know, you get that cool sound, which is one of the things that Ben-Burt and Gary Rydstrom figured out and created Star Wars out of that. This is sort of, well, among many other things, this is sort of cutting off. I don't like that snap at the end, so we'll give it a little crossfade, as we will with this one as well. Here, like so. And then I've got this little metal layer. Let's solo this for a second. Just a little ringing, kind of cool, almost like it was the action of a rifle moving. But it's kind of just like a hammer kind of a sound. And if we bring these together, you know, layering is everything in sound effects, and you can never have too many layers. That's for sure. We'll unmute this. Let's drag this over so that it lines up. Unsolo, Han Solo. And why are we not moving? There we go. Okay, and let's check out how this one's doing. Looks like this one's a little late. Somewhere about there. Cool. And let's see, if we balance these correctly, we should get something cool. Let's make a little loop out of this. Want a little more slinky. And while that's kind of cool, you know, it needs a little more thump, a little more hump, power to it. So I brought in this cool dubstep bass drum kind of a sound, which is nice. Let's make this a little bit bigger because I've also added some plugins to it. But we'll solo it for a second. Here's what it sounds like. And again, I don't like those clicking bits, so we'll get a little crossfade action on that. Very small amount, just enough to get rid of the little digital click. There we go. And that's a lot of lows, but it's a little flubby, a little not that interesting. So I'm instantiating Waves C1 compressor with a very strong ratio and a very short attack, so that the attack of the bass drum is really strong, and you know, we have a nice contour of the lows. Well, the threshold's pretty strong here too. Let's take a listen here. Turning it on. Make a loop. And with it off, just a lot snappier. And to recover some of the lows that we've lost using that compressor, which happens when you use a lot of compression, you lose lows, we're adding the low air plugin, subharmonic enhancer, at a range of about 60 hertz. How could you see that? There you go. And some pretty strong boosting there, and we're taking away some of that fundamental just so we have some sub lows. And if you're listening on computer speakers or an iPhone headphone, you can't possibly hear what we're talking about. But we'll turn it off and on. That's pretty cool, pretty thunderous down there. And when we add it to our ensemble here, oh, we should probably line them up so that we can do that. What do you think? Well, that one looks like it's pretty tight, but let's fix it just a little bit. That's in sync. Awesome. And then let's drive over to here and fly that one in. Oh, yeah. Juicy. Like we could probably lengthen this metal bit. That's pretty cool. And with that thump in there, it really adds some juiciness. So now with just these basic elements, just some basic elements, let's take a look at the clip itself. And this is from, oh, here we go, Blade of Honor, just a simple visual effects clip. And we want to be able to deal with and basically add sound effects to this ship that we're locked into. So we'll put in some markers. We'll just zoom forward here till we get to that frame of the first hit. There it is, right there. Mark it. And the next one, whoa. There's the next one right there. And the first third is right there. I don't think there's any more for a while. All right, cool. Now we're going to drag this in. These folks in. Like so. Come on in, y'all. Marker 1. Marker 2. You'll notice it's creating these cool little crossfades for us, which is awfully nice. Not so wanted at the moment, but awfully nice. We'll just turn these off for there for now. So now what do we have, at least for these first two? Yeah, works good. Cool. I could do a repeat and take this first one and drag it, and now you have third. But what happens is, unless you have a library of 4 or 5 different sounds, it starts sounding like a machine gun. You know, like gecko, 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 especially if it's fast and happening in an action. Punches, body punches, things like that especially. They get, you know, they start sounding like a machine gun. So we want to have a library of minimum of 4 different sounds that you can repeat, but ideally much, much more than that. In this case, you could theoretically take, in fact, I'll just show you a cheat to do this. If this was all you had, we can take this first boom kit sound and then this second laser slinky kit bit, even though it's just a repeat of this one and that one together. If we take this first of these metal utilities and line it up, then the theory would be that we would have less of this repetition machine gunny sound, and theoretically it wouldn't sound so bad. So let's see. It sort of is, you know, it doesn't really work. It's just, you want to have a different sound for each one. But now let's move to the part you've all been waiting for, which is the hawk screech. And this was the thing that kind of blew how the sounds of the ships for Blade of Honor were going to sound, blew it wide open. Here's just a simple hawk screech. It's pretty cool. I mean, if you've heard this in the wild, you know that that's a beautiful sound, something you don't hear every day. We want to take off this attack that's slow. And we can do that just with the edit. And give it a little bit of a crossfade so we don't hear a tick. Cool. And then if we drop this right, without any processing or anything else, if we drop this in, and then we just do some of this, you know, doing a simple repeat. Again, that horrible machine gun situation that we don't like, but for lack of a better purpose. Did I just get this crossfade to go all the way over to here? I did. Here, let's get rid of this crossfade, however helpful that might have been. And this crossfade. Well, that's pretty cool, right? It's machine gunny, but it's a super cool concept. Now what we want to do is create a library. Now that we have 4 different elements, we can start creating this library. And one of the ways we change up that hawk sound is simply by changing its pitch. And let's get out of this and create that long long edit. And what I like to do is just burn files. I don't like to do automation for something like this. I want to actually burn individual files that I can then rearrange and create a library, even if I have a very few resources like I have here. I've only got a couple of each of these sounds. I want to make a library of 4 or 5 or 6 things. All right, we're going to double click and we go into this edit view, the spectral view. And in this, anything I do is going to be destructive and burn to the file. I want to change the pitch of this. And one of the best pitch shifters that I know is from Waves, pitch shift, Waves, sound shifter, pitch stereo. Very simple plugin to use. You just do punch, transient, or smooth. We want smooth in this case. And then, excuse me, figure out which notes you'd like, or fraction of a note, or just drag this up or down. Or much, much lower. Okay, we don't want to go that far. Maybe just a little bit of a semitone up. And then with it off. Just subtle. We'll apply. Now this has destructively saved this to Hawk Screech 2. We don't want to save over this, right? We don't want to do that. We want to create our own version of same. So we will say, copy to new. And in copy to new, I should have, there it is, untitled number 2. Now I can't name it, but that's okay. You notice I'm now editing untitled number 2, but this is going to stay here if I go back to Hawk Screech 2. I'm going to undo. So now I've made a version up here that's a little bit higher, and this is the original. We'll undo sound shifter pitch stereo, which is cool because I've fixed this one back to its original. And if I double click this, it's a little bit higher, just like we edited. So we'll go back here. Now we're going to make one that's a little bit lower. VST3, pitch, Waves, pitch stereo, just a little bit low. Oops, just about there. Perfect. We'll apply. We will copy to new. And now I have untitled 2, 3, and there we go. Now we're going to go back here, and you'll see to this window, the edit window. We've got all of these at our disposal now, which we can pull from the Files menu, which is super cool. No, thank you. Good. And then 2. Now we'll just cut off the heads of each one of these. And so we don't get any confusion, I'm going to drop each one of these on a marker. Getting rid of this crossfade. And double checking our edit because we're kind of zoomed out pretty far here. Yeah, not quite right. Drag this over. Now we have 3 independent pitches for each one of those hawk screams, which gives us even more latitude to create more differences in our library. Right? Those are 3 different sounds. Now, I can, continue to do this and add more if I wanted to, basically creating different iterations of each one of these. And now I could maybe pull the first one again. Let's get rid of this. So that, again, it's not machine gunny. We don't want this. Again, I have very few elements, but I can create more of these elements, at least in a cheat mode. Ideally, you've got a ton of these different independent sounds that you can pull from. But if you don't, then you can do this kind of a thing and make it successful. Extending these out. And no one will know that that's repeating because you have too many elements that are changing, even though there's only a couple of elements in each one of these tracks. And, mixed to taste, you can pull the bird down. And then another thing you can do on all of these tracks, go to the master, and you can instantiate Waves Enigma Stereo. Let's turn that on. And just use a simple plugin, Flansburgh. How about Always Rising? maybe a little too much. How about Bell's Perk? Oh, that's really cool. How about Dub-O-Matic? Kind of give it some delay feel. There's so many cool things in here. Mootron. Anyway, so you don't have to just use hawk screams. You can use gorilla roars. You can use elephant screams, horses. I found out horse screams are amazing to do. And add animal elements to these kinds of things. Again, layering is always your friend. And you don't have to do it in Adobe Audition, although this is just straight editing stuff using those Waves plugins. Like I said, there's very little that I like more in sound effects than working on sci-fi spaceship sounds, guns, those kinds of things. And using, a hawk sound or an eagle sound or any kind of animal, and you morph it and add it to, whatever you can on top of metals and slinkies, it really creates an otherworldly sense. That TIE fighter roar that you hear from Star Wars, that's an animal, that's a mammal. I think it's a goat roar or something. It's not mechanical at all. It's the roar of an animal been resynthesized. So there's all manner of things that you can fool your audience into thinking is so cool if you have the creativity and the skill set to do it. I urge you to come to cinemasound.com, and if you can, become a member and share with us what you're doing on your production, and we'll share with you our knowledge and get you up and running in no time in this kind of way. Until then, we'll see you in post.
Even if for yourself.